mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely, and thank you all for coming. I think it's important. I mean, I think it's important to teach anything at an HBCU or to an African descended audience that will help expose all of the still existing contradictions and hostilities and antagonisms that we still have to deal with. For me, I've always had a problem with, you know, I love what my generation did in helping curate, develop, promote, evolve hip hop, but I've always had a problem with one mistake I think we made, in part because we inherited a lack of organization after the fall of the Black Power era and all of that, that we never, I think to this day, fully properly organized around anything. And then hip hop itself, I think, fell into that existing political vacuum, and has in some ways had its narrative reframed and told in a way that's anti not only its history but the people that have produced it, and it's created more mythologies that we still have to deal with, and I think we'll get a chance to talk about that going forward. So for me, any chance that we get to say, you know, so really my point is, I've never really fully agreed with the idea. I really like how you started, that we have to study ourselves, because I think a lot of what has happened with the isolation of hip hop has been an attempt to divorce it from the African experience, to de-racialize it, if you would, and to make it something that is not just open to everyone and can be performed by everyone and appreciated by everyone, but that is something that is everyone and not specific to an African experience that existed in this country. And I think anything that we can do to reset that history, and then again, as I started off by saying, to really revisit and challenge the existing contradictions that we have, we need to use that, and hip hop is a great vehicle for that.
And it builds out here at Howard something that, to my knowledge, had not been attempted before, which is taking hip hop beyond the shores of this country to really look at it as a global phenomenon, and that's no small thing. In the context of, and you're right, I mean, in the context of a subject that has become kind of a boutique subject at HBCUs, and it's cute to talk about it, let's go get Night Wonder, or let's get Nas, you know, which kind of gives a sense of how this is sometimes being framed. It's kind of like the zoo, right? You know, we can study lions and we can get a lion and get them to roar and take a picture with it and say that we've been engaged in studying the lion. I mean, that's kind of a white college approach in some ways. This is a white college approach to ethnic studies, black studies, Latino studies, women's studies. That's, you know, it's carnival-esque. Not all of it. There's some great hip-hop scholars here, which I'll talk about in about 45 seconds. I'm not going to...
You guys are all not only hip-hop professors, hip-hop scholars, but you're also activists. And so just based on your comments and on your work that you do in the community and outside of the classroom, does hip-hop culture have a role to play in community activism and mobilization? And if so, like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, yeah, the short answer is yes. Everything has a responsibility. I mean, and this is sort of, again, been one of my problem is probably too strong a word, but one of my slight issues with this whole thing over the last 20-some-odd years is that hip-hop has been, for good and for bad purposes, isolated and given a responsibility that nothing, you know, that is undue it and unjust it as itself. It is a cultural expression of a people. That's it. Right. It's not, so in other words, if you are a jazz artist, if you are, you know, whatever your cultural expression is, you have a responsibility to have it play a role in the struggle for your people. And I do fall on that side, by the way. I think anything, I don't believe in, you know, art for art's sake, and I don't believe in anything for anything's sake at this point. Given the context we're in, everything needs to be put in the direction of liberation. So, so yes, it has a role, but one of the problems that is presented in trying to be a quote-unquote hip-hop activist is that these contradictions become clear. In that, for instance, hip-hop as a nation, as it was often called in my generation, was insufficiently analyzed as a colonized nation and still leads to a lot of confusion. So if you don't put in the part about the colonial relationship of this hip hop nation to the state and to everything else, then you lose sight of the fact that, again, just like with everything else, we don't control it, we don't own it, we don't benefit from, we can't make it popular. This is a big misconception. As much as we may like a Kendrick and whoever else, we have nothing to do with their popularity. Wow. Nothing. So we can't control it, and we don't benefit financially from it. So we have the same, hip hop as a nation has the same colonized relationship as any other nation to a mother country, and all of our communities have to those in power to this day. I'll stop here. You know, Huey Newton was right 40 years ago when he said that the intercommunal relationship is the issue. We don't have any nations to which we can decolonize anymore. Every nation, from Ghana to Nigeria to the United States to hip hop, was a colonial creation, inspired, if not fully led by a European imperial project. So Black America, hip hop, Panama, Ghana, Nigeria, none of them are authentic to the human populations are coalesced in those geographies and in those names, nor is this hip hop nation authentic in the sense that it is a response to a colonized situation. So to the extent that we don't understand that, we fall back into the same thing. So that's why today, materially, Black people around the world are worse off than we were 40, 50 years ago, despite producing the billions through hip hop and everything else. Because we don't make the money, we don't control it, we can't invest it, we have none of it. And then the fame is used against us to promote mythologies about what this country can do and what this world can produce for so-called oppressed people. The one more point I wanted to make, since you mentioned Louis Armstrong, one thing we have to remember is, just like he was, and jazz was a precursor to hip hop, jazz was used by the state in the same exact way.
That's right.
So when she was running for president, people kept talking about the super predator thing and all that. And I kept going back to what Hillary Clinton said when she was Secretary of State. And she said openly in Al Jazeera Press, we're going to use hip hop to promote the image of the United States around the world, just like we did in the 50s with jazz.
That's right.
So the same thing, jazz is great, our people are brilliant, but we don't control it, we don't have any power, so the same art is used in the same way. So we send hip hop artists all around the world, they promote false images of what this country is and what it is not, and then that fame is used against those of us who are trying to become activists and say, wait, there are problems here, we need to struggle. We don't need to struggle. Got Kendrick on TV, Beyonce's on TV, everybody's rich, everybody's happy, Diddy's making money, they're throwing money to scream. Why are you complaining? Well, wait a minute. That's the point. So if none of those people control those images, none of us control those images are constantly, to this day, used against us and work to weaken our ability to analyze and understand our situation and organize it out of existence.
Because I'm thinking about some of these new theoreticians who are not working in Black spaces, but who are talking about Black spaces as if you can construct them out of nothing and claim them as Black spaces, as activists know. I mean, Fred Moulton, for example. Moulton's whole notion that this undercommons, that Blackness is about, you know, the expanding possibilities beyond the political, it's all political in some ways. It's a political project. Natalie Crawford, whose new book, Post-Black Blackness, argues that Blackness exceeds activism in some ways. The Black arts movement, you know, frames some, but then Blackness transcends that. And I'm thinking, y'all always trying to escape busting somebody in the mouth. And part of that is because you get your check from white spaces. You know what I'm saying? So you got to create a Blackness that allows you to defend your existence. I'm not mad at you, but there's a political nature to all scholarship. So
one of the problems that I have is that hip hop academics don't battle. That has been one of the issues. That has been one of the issues I've been trying to advocate for a long time. So even when I was doing radio, I invited Jeff Chang, I invited Bacardi.
Right, you did.
Because because I think they're all good people. I just think that they're wrong on a lot of ways that they approach. And to be fair, you think I'm wrong, and that's fine. The problem that I have is that, well, to the extent I don't want to suggest that there's an equanimity here that they give a damn about me as much as I probably have to give a damn about them. But I mean, there are levels and hierarchies here. There are people who are supported differently than others. But the one point I did want to make though is that, again, hip hop is not special here. There's an attempt by those in power, by the state and its institutions, to divorce people generationally. So it's not specific to hip hop. So for instance, one of the things that I do in my class is, all I try to do is I borrow something from a professor that I disagreed with years ago, but one thing we always agreed on, I love that he said, you must interrogate your preferences. So my approach is to say, in my class, I want to say, how do you know what you know and why do you like what you like? I don't want to condemn what you like, but I do want you to analyze why you reached a certain conclusion. And one of the ways I try to do that with music is to try to just go through and identify the process by which an artist is signed and promoted and made famous. And it has nothing to do with their talent. It doesn't mean that they're not talented. It just means that their talent isn't why they're promoted, is not why they're signed, and is not why they're made famous. Fame itself is political, and the fact that these institutions target young people, specifically 12 to 18-year-olds, so because they know I'm not going to be driving around at 45, 46 now. Something does happen. I don't want to listen to a 20-year-old tell me about his life. I don't want to listen to him. And it's not a diss. It's not a diss. It's just being honest.
It's like you ain't listen to the 8-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, when you live another 20 or 25 years, I don't want to hear a teenager telling me about his first love, and I don't want to go through that anymore. I'm not interested in it. So they're targeting my daughters. They're targeting so that they listen to something I'm not listening to, and then they separate us. They have the oldies channel, and then so LL just he's taking over Backspin on Sirius. He's got the old school channel for people like me.
Yeah.
You aren't supposed to listen to that, and my children aren't supposed to listen to that. They want us all separate, and then they divide us up and they feed it. This is how all institutions do it. This is how all media operates.
I never noticed it before you said it.
So again, it's not specific to hip hop, but hip hop does suffer it because it is being produced by people who are colonized. And anything we do, we could give up hip hop tomorrow. Anything we create next is going to suffer the same exact process because the political relationship has not been changed.
My question is, since you posed the claim that that hip hop is controlled by outside sources, do you worry that our image as Black Americans is being tainted towards our brothers and sisters, in the continent and on the Caribbean because of this image that they try to portray? It has nothing to do with everyday Black Americans.
I would only challenge one word. I don't worry about it. I lament it. It is happening. I mean, it's a problem, and it's intentional. I mean, I always tell it this way. There's the only thing I've ever really liked that I've read in one of John Lewis's books, his memoir. I'm not. I mean, is that he told a very truthful story in one of his memoirs. He said when he was the head of SNCC in 1964, he went throughout Africa, taking SNCC, meeting all the African leaders, and he said every stop they made, where they had met with someone who had previously met with Malcolm X, they said every leader told them if you're anywhere to the right of Malcolm X, we don't even want to talk to you. Malcolm X had become the international standard for Black politics.
Wow.
Wow. 50, 60 some odd years later, look where we are. And in part, this is because of the promotion of something else.
Yes.
So it's, again, not just specific to hip hop. The same way Malcolm had to be assassinated so we could end up with Jesse and then Obama, you have to get rid of Maimouna Youssef so that you can have Cardi B. I mean, it's not that I'm dissing Cardi B, it's just simply to say you have to recognize the difference and recognize why one is promoted over another. It's the same thing, I've even tried to argue this with my hip hop academic colleagues. I would even put it this way, there are times I know I've been invited somewhere, not because I'm the best, but because the people doing the inviting think I will serve their specific political need.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
If I'm not aware of that and I'm just walking around thinking, oh man, they can't wait to hear me. I mean, that's just silly. That's silly. And artists have to do the same thing. Why are you being put on the radio every 5 minutes? Is it really because you're that good? Or is it because you are promoting something that those who are sponsoring you want promoted? And that's all I'm saying. So it's not, that's it. So yes, there is a definite intent. And that's what Hillary Clinton was admitting. She's saying, the whole world is looking at this country and saying, look how you treat these Black people. Look how you treat these brown people. What? Send them on a tour. Put them on a tour. We did it before. We've already learned this lesson. They see black people playing trumpets. They're like, oh, how bad could it be?
That's right.
50 years later, they see black people rocking the mic, and some of the more progressive political artists get sent that don't even get put on the radio. That's the hustle, too.
Yeah.
So they even send radical artists that you never hear on the radio.
That's right.
And send them around the world, and people think, that's what's rocking in the United States? How bad could America be?
Right.
And then they come over here, and you never would see those artists ever again. So yes, there is a definite intent, because look at what's happening on the continent. Everybody's raping the continent. Everybody's exploiting the Pan-African potential relationships have to continue to be distorted. So that radicalness of Malcolm going to the continent has to be interrupted. So now it's 50 Cent going to the continent, or it's whoever else going to the continent. And no disrespect to them, but that's just politically something very different than Malcolm. So yeah, yes, it is happening, and we should be beyond worried, because it is directly linked to the material conditions of black people all around the world, this negative image, and it's designed on purpose. I'll actually, because I think we're running out of time, so I'll close by saying this, that first of all, again, thank you all for coming, thanks for hosting this, thanks for having me. I think that, I put something on, I'm talking about shameless plugs, that iMixWhatiLike.org a little while ago, about C. Dolores Tucker being right. And one of the things, C. Dolores Tucker, an imperfect person, no question, was absolutely right back in the day when she was arguing that hip-hop was being taken over by corporations and turned against us and being used to, but hip-hop turned against her. Talking about the age thing.
Yeah.
My generation totally got this wrong.
Isn't that something?
We totally got it wrong, from KRS all the way down to
Instead of fighting us, why don't you go free with me?
That's right. And Tupac telling her to go. All this time, all this stuff. Because they misunderstood the point. Like, our generation missed the point. We were so busy defending the rise of this cultural expression that we lost the sight of our relationship to this society. We don't have control over our product. What Tucker was saying is all the corporations are doing, because what is a corporation? It's organized white supremacy, organized capitalism. It allows people to rule in anonymity. It's as Robert Reich says, a legal fiction. It's just, they're not spooky. They're just mostly rich white men who hide themselves in anonymity and collectively invest. By the way, if you just do this, I did in my class, just real quick. Just see if you can find out who actually, the number one institutional owner of almost anything is a hedge fund whose name is escaping my, I knew it was going to happen as soon as I started to say it, it's escaping my, but when you look up, it'll come to me, when you look up this hedge fund, you can't even find out who's in it, because it tells you the people who are in this hedge fund are the people who invest in this hedge fund. That's what the website says. You can't even look at it because you can't invest in it. Your money's not in there. But they own everything from Netflix to AT&T to Apple to Google. They are the number one institutional investor in everything. And my point in this is, what are they doing? They're doing this in anonymity so they can influence and promote what versions of stories and narratives become popular, part of popular culture. And as it impacts black people or hip hop, they will constantly look to promote the same sort of stories and images. What Walter Lippmann has said years ago was a white supremacist self-defense mechanism. They have to promote negative images of blackness as a self-defense mechanism to promote their own false sense of superiority. And then, of course, in terms of political economy and materialism, they needed to make capital work. The capital can't flow unless they're investing in something. And they're not going to invest in something that's going to make you look good, that's going to make me look good, that's going to make Howard look good. They're going to invest in something that's going to tell a story that they are comfortable with. And this I'll end here. This is what Tucker, I think, understood that we still have not figured out. Just because it's popular and just because it's black does not mean that you are the intended audience. This is what Tyler Perry's career is based off of. This is what I think what got Ava caught up. This is what got Kubler caught up. Is that they are being told to make movies. They're being encouraged, influenced to make movies that appease white audiences, not black audiences.
That's right.
Fruitvale was for white audiences. Black Panther was for white audiences. Creed, damn sure, was for white audiences. These are not so. A story about an HBCU on Netflix is not for black audiences. It's for white audiences who want to see stories about black people that will not challenge their sense of what it is to be white. So we're never going to see anything else until there is this political revolution.